So
we were talking back there.
Yes, we were. So,
and the prep work we did is Lou said, what are we blah, blah, blahing about? That's how sophisticated this is, yeah.
Exactly. But, you know, obviously you're sitting in this chair for a reason. So help us understand that reason.
Why am I here
because
for?
eToro is obviously one of
so
the...
I don't know if anybody knows eToro here. eToro is a trading investing platform. I'm the U.S. CEO of eToro.
And it was started in
Israel. And it's a social trading platform where you can comment on our social environment. We can trade crypto. Now we just launched stocks in the U.S. We also have a lot of training for investors who want to be able to do it. Like you, we believe that learning is only done by doing. So we really have like a platform that's for the learning by doing kind of environment. And we're so committed to this community. Even though we have stocks, for us, the digital asset community is really where the future is at. And we're excited to be here. And Consensus is here as well.
That's great. So, community is one of these words we hear a lot. How do you define community?
I mean, in the essence of community, from my perspective, I'm originally from Ethiopia, so community is it's my cultural heartbeat. But at the end of the day, community is a group of individuals that have like-mindedness associated with them, where they have a symbiosis of helping one another, supporting one another. And yes, I agree with that. Shiva's great. So ultimately, it's really a mechanism by which it helps individuals to have a force multiplier to the things that they do. But it also has another magical component, which is that it is the power and force behind being able to change the status quo, right? Finance doesn't change without the status quo changing, and I think that individuals can't do that all by themselves, communities do.
And so when you think about how you're investing in your community, how do you think about the ROI of that?
I mean, I don't even know if I look at it through the lens of a financial ROI. If you're being more global in your perspective of human ROI, I think it is essentially, in my opinion, the force multiplier that changes things, right? So in our instance, we have a community of investors on our platform. To my mind's eye, if we do this experiment right at eToro, it means you don't have to have some ivory tower to know how to manage money, right? You could get a followership because of your expertise, whether you're in Kuala Lumpur or Nepal, and have the same level of influence and chutzpah and ability that some dude who was, born and bred in Harvard can have. So I think that that's the power of that access that community affords people.
And so now you've been there, what have been the major lessons you've learned in the time that you've been there?
This is a crazy-ass community. That's one thing. I love it. I feel very blessed to have, my background is I was in investing, but more like Wall Street capital markets investing for individuals for a long time. And I really believe in investing in capital markets. But when I came back to the digital asset, I was intentional about coming into this community because the reality is when I was running stuff on traditional finance, it was only white dudes looking at me across the table. And this is just,
I'll try not to take offense to that.
I won't take offense. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's kind of lonely to be a sprinkling ice, a sprinkler. And
I get it.
So, but I think what was so exciting about this side of it was the very power of the ability that it can deconstruct the normal, that it could break normal. That, as I said, where things that are either too expensive, inaccessible, not innovative enough, that I think digital assets make possible, that just simple capital markets infrastructures can't.
Right. But obviously, as awesome as breaking the normal is, that's just like the entry point.
That is definitely the entry point.
Right. But now, how do you bring real utility to the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think in several ways. So first of all, the utility, what's so exciting about digital assets to me is if any given innovation in, let's say the .com bubble, right? It solved maybe 3 or 4 layers of use cases in society, right? That's so exciting to me about digital assets is you take that 3 or 4 layers and you can go down to 100 layers. There's just so many use cases that digital assets could solve that I think traditional infrastructure cannot, right? And partly because it's the reality of the Internet of Things. So how do we power people? So the lane I play in is I always say to people, right, you got to be an investor. Only investors end up having money to transfer to their heirs, not everybody else. So one is like dabbling as an investor and understanding it. The other is dabbling as a user, right? You can be part of this community and become, whether it's a DAO or something that you do that becomes part of the building side of this community. And then the other thing, which is my favorite thing, I live in Brooklyn and I sit on my stoop and educate my neighbors, my family about this, which is like you could be a teacher. And this is and you don't have to be a PhD to be a teacher in this space. What's so great about it. So I think there's so many ways that individuals can partake in this, but I think the power of it is, as I said, is that force multiplier, like 100 plus, for that 3x of what the .com bubble did, or the .com innovations did. This is to me like exponential in terms of the power that it could have in democratizing finance and creating ability to have access to capital. Like at eToro, we have also a nonprofit that it's called the Good Dollar. And it's a mechanism by which it's an experiment.
And by the way, but the Good Dollar is really epic. So I don't know how many people here know about Good Dollar. But
so it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah,
so
it's really,
Yeah. So it's using basically crypto technology to try to see if we can create a mechanism and an ecosystem and community for the distribution of capital. And so it is a community of dozens of countries. And if you look at our Good Dollar footprint, tons of people in Malaysia, in Philippines, in Nigeria. And those individuals not only benefit from the capital distribution that Good Dollar has, but now they are part of a network of people that are on Good Dollar. They can connect off-grid to start doing business together in other ways. This is what I mean about the force multiplier of digital assets, right? And the communities that they power. So I think that, again, I think this is such an exciting space. No matter, right now, obviously, it's a little chilly, right? It's a little wintry. But I think, all innovations have that. So I feel like when you come into this space, you got to have the resiliency of years ahead and not whether it's a year or two.
Yeah, exactly. And check out my Twitter PFP. It's a couple diamond hands. Because I think that's where we are as an ecosystem. So, when I started CryptoMondays, I started the meetup I wanted, which was nobody talking. Because most of the time somebody's talking, I really wish they'd shut the fuck up. But, now, but now, so we keep it to a half hour, and it's 20 minutes of me now. But it's awesome because now I invite people that I want to learn from, right? And that I think if I'm learning, I think other people in the community are learning. It's awesome. And so it's 20 minutes of questions from me, 10 minutes of questions from the audience. So if anybody out in the audience has a question, that they'd like to ask, and I will, if nobody has one, I'll start off. Oh, there you go.
So I'm all for trying to give people, the general public, access to all kinds of financial instruments, but every time there's some kind of major problem in the crypto space, FEI or UST obviously, you realize that a large proportion of these people had no idea what they were actually buying. I see people buying assets with things like negative convexity.
Yes, we've heard of Terra.
Sure, but even other things like they buy perpetual futures or power perpetual futures, or assets with negative convexity.
Yeah, I think she gets the question, right?
Yeah.
This is
So
not.
it's a funny balance,
I get
right?
it. So let me tell you my backstory. I'm from Ethiopia. I came no money in my pocket. And I don't want anybody getting in my way of telling me how to acquire assets and accumulate assets for my children. That's the mental framework.
Hold on a minute. Let's give an applause for that.
So,
Let fucking nobody. That's what I'm here for. Is to let fucking nobody get in your way of doing whatever the fuck you want.
Just for the record, I did not say F though.
By the way, I'm wearing the shirt too, right? Fuck them all.
Okay. So my mama will snatch me up from the grave if I use your language, but okay. So
Yes,
I would
I'm
say,
sorry.
but I would say, that's one element of it. Like this parental attitude we have for individuals. You know what ends up happening? We create regulations that ends up icing out the individual. Only institutionals end up making money, and individuals don't end up owning capital. So the
But
answer
they
is
get
not
to buy a lottery ticket.
Yes, but the answer is not to chill the environment. The answer is not to have a mental framework of you don't know better, right? I am ceding the ground that there is individuals that do lose for sure, right? There is a moral hazard we have to manage for. But what I am proposing though is that that approach should not be a parental one that says you don't know what you're doing, but rather a promotion of transparency, a promotion of individual responsibility. Like, don't invest stuff you can't lose for se, right? A promotion of education, a promotion of communities teaching each other like we do on our platform, right? I am not disagreeing there's moral hazard. I disagree with some of the tool sets that people use around it, which end up icing out individuals from being able to accumulate capital.
Yeah.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah, seriously, rock and roll to that. Anybody else? So I will ask a question. So talk about your experience interacting with Israel, because it's kind of a different culture.
I love them, man. I love them. Maybe because I'm originally from Ethiopia, and there's an element of like I get along.
Well, a
with
lot of you
cultures.
guys, when like you left Dodge, you went to
Yeah,
they
I didn't lose Dodge, but yeah, but I think that part of it is I think there's a cultural connection I have from the original motherland that I came from. But I'm a proud American now, just to be for the record. But so I get along with them culturally. They're kind of warm, and they speak their hearts. They're open-minded, but at the same time convicted. I love that. So I get along with them just fine.
So again, I'll open up the questions if anybody has one. I think we're talking to somebody who's sitting in a seat and seen a lot. So if nobody else, I'll ask one. So as you're growing your business, what are the major metrics that you're focused on?
So first for us, because we are still, we are trying to make our way into becoming, so if you don't know about eToro globally, we're really sort of like the Robin Hood of Europe and part of Asia, etc. Right? So what we're trying to do, that's scale. So that's scale. So what we're trying to do in the US is really to become that contender of a fintech that has a digital asset and a capital markets and sort of accessibility. So part of it is like, because we're still growing, it's about creating community. So, eToro has 27 million community members, of which 2.4 million are account holders, right? So my measuring stick is not just about an account holder or trading, it's about the ecosystem of like the community you create. And that's going to be a big thing for us, right? Whether you put money in our platform to invest in it, or whether you just logged in, accessed it to be part of the community, to practice investing with fun money, if you will. We see that all as beneficial for growth and beneficial for, again, like I'm not doing this just for money. I really, really in my heart believe in access to capital, investing, and innovation for individuals and not just institutions.
Hard not to give a big applause to that, right? So what are you hoping to get out of Consensus? So this is, when did you get in?
Yeah. What is that saying? May you ever be an eternal student. I'm here as a student to learn, to connect with people, to keep getting the energy from this crazy community. I love it. I was telling somebody I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I was telling somebody it feels like America is like so balkanized unless you go to a crypto conference, and it's just like the most odd combinations of people, which is so lovely. So both to get the energy from the cultural context of what this place is, and to learn and to connect and to learn from others.
So what was the last thing that you learned about?
What is the last thing I learned about? That's a hard question. I'm learning all the time.
Yes, exactly. I know. What was the last time you said, fuck, how is that a thing? Oh my God, how did I not know that before?
So let's just baseline. I never think to myself, how did I not know that before? Because I know I don't know a whole lot of shit. But I think the last time I learned that the thing that went, was when I really sort of understood the power of DAOs, right? What they meant in terms of, as I said, the community and the ownership of the individuals being able to own that particular instrument as well as the rules around it and the impact around it. And I have just been a convert of DAOs ever since.
And what was the time, what period that happened?
In the last few months, really. Yeah. Because remember, before that, I loved crypto, but I really didn't get into it from the underbelly of how it's constructed perspective. I mean, I knew about, obviously, investing, and I invested in it plenty. I knew about the community, I knew about the culture, I knew about blockchain, but really, like, these last few months, I've been with eToro now for about 8 months, have been a study of, like, opening the hood and really understand, which has been amazing.
So I don't want to harsh your mellow, because obviously, you know, you've taken the pill. But, you know, the biggest, so I've been doing this I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary. I saw the crypto one on June 29, 2017. And I would say that my biggest disappointment with the ecosystem is how little progress we made on governance and consensus.
I mean, I think the reality is, I think you can't underestimate how long it takes to build a new revolutionary structure. And I think the excitement of it was really high, but we knew that this was not going to be revolutionary. It's going to be evolutionary, right? Any enduring system. So I understand the disappointment, but I'm not taking the pill. Let's just be real, right? So
I feel I've taken the pill. You have taken
I don't think I've
I
taken
would
the
not
pill.
have done this if I didn't think
No, I
you
mean,
had taken the
maybe
pill.
a third eye, but like, I don't think it's not a naivete that I bring to this, right? So like, I think this thing is going to be tough. I think we're going to have a lot of.
Hold on a minute. What haven't you seen? I mean, are you like Warren Buffett? Is this, you know?
In what sense?
No, I'm so, and I appreciate you being open and saying that you haven't. But what about it? Have you not? Okay, I'm still not sure about that.
Well, I think it's the speed part, and I'm not sure. I don't believe the speed is as fast as people think it is. Like, do you remember when everybody was saying how Bitcoin is a play against inflation, right? Do you remember that, when every pundit was saying that? But the reality is we are in an environment right now where, like, the experiment is not a clean one, right? You got the Fed who is readjusting, the money flows, right? So there's so many other elements that are impacting the experiment. You've got a really tough regulatory environment that it's impossible to be so clear-eyed to say this is why it's slowed down. There's just way too many macroeconomic issues as to why we are where we are right now. So I feel like I'm not surprised by that. I was a student of economics. I'm not surprised by all of this. I think the key is who endures, who sticks around. And I do think, though, this is true. If America gets a little too overzealous with, and I respect the gentleman from the back, with, again, this idea on two folds. One is over-regulation, or this idea that the individual has to be parented. I definitely think that it'll go somewhere else, and this will be the loss of America.
So, what I love about, being a part of this community is, the only thing that I'm sure of is that whatever it ends up being is different than what anybody thinks it's going to be. That's my religion. And so at this point, I think, if folks, obviously you've been thinking about this a lot, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue. I do these Crypto Mondays. I think the majority of the value, as awesome as you are and we are and blah, 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 I think the majority of the value is from everybody else in the room, because most of the people in this room are really epic. So blah, blah, blah with them, and we'll do it afterwards, and let's give her a big hand.
Thank you.